In my hand, I have DriverVN3, okay? I am so dang excited and so nervous at the same time because this video is going to be information packed and I have only gotten a very short amount of time to play with this prototype. Okay, so what is DriverVN3? It's the third version of the circuitry version in most of my lights, okay? First off though, we have to give special thanks to two incredibly talented individuals. First will be Richard from mountainelectronics.com. He is the person that actually builds the circuits, okay? And design the circuit boards. I've met Richard in person. We were friends. He used to be in Seattle. He moved to Utah now. He's also in the flashlight business. However, while running his flashlight website and business, he managed to get a degree in law. And kudos, hats off to him. It's just incredibly impressive for someone to be able to run a side business, have a family, and got a degree in law. Just amazing, amazing, amazing. He's one of the smartest individuals walking that I've gotten the honor to meet, okay? And he builds all these circuits for me, all right? The second individual I have not yet met would be Dr. Jones. He resides somewhere in Germany, and I don't quite know much about him. All I know is he's a genius, and he is able to cram a lot of informations, a lot of complicated user interface into something like this, okay? And all these user interface is user programmable, and that's the beauty of DriverVN3, or any DriverVN for that matter. Okay, so in my opinion, DriverVN3 is not just evolutionary to DriverVN2. I would think it's quite revolutionary because it has a lot of features that DriverVN2 does not have, and very complicated but very well thought out, okay? Okay. I'm going to be making two separate videos. In this video, I'm just going to be introducing the features of DriverVN3, and I will be making a separate video on showing you how to program the UI with the driver already in this Surefire U2. Okay? C2. Alright, so as you can see here, this is DriverVN2 on a P60, powering a P60. And you can see here there's a spring, and at the bottom of the spring to the tip of the spring is connected with a wire. This wire helps to improve current flow. And if you have impending current flow, the springs will heat up and it will soften, and you no longer have the stiffness of the spring, and the battery will rattle, and the light obviously will not work. On top of that, as you can, if the springs get softened up, obviously all of the gold plated around the surface of the spring will be burnt off, and then you just have a piece of metal here that is not very good in transferring electricity, because electrons flow out the surface of the metal. So you would want to maintain the gold plated here, because electrons flows on the surface of the metal. Okay, so in order to prevent the springs from softening up due to overheat with excessive current flow, I added this wire here, okay, so that the current will go through the wire instead of through the spring, and all the spring would do is provide tension for the battery and not much in carrying current. The current will be most likely go through the least resistance path, which is the wire here, okay, and that's a good design, but it's not a perfect design. On DriverVN3, we've decided to put a hole through the driver because technically it's one continuous trace from the LED to the positive of the battery, okay? So what we did was we poke a hole through the freaking circuit here and run the wire directly through it, the LED positive bond wire, okay? Not bond wire, just LED leads. So you can see here, I can fit a 22 gauge silicone wire directly through the circuit like so, right? So on this side, I will still have a spring attached. I will still have a spring attached like this, and the spring will attach to the tip of the wire will attach to the tip of the spring inside of the spring. So that makes it very convenient for soldering. And on top of that, if you take a closer look, it's harder to break the wire off the spring now, and on top of that, all the spring is doing now is for the tension, keeping the battery from giving the battery impact resistance, and basically keeping the circuit continuously closed at all time. Okay, but the battery is actually touching. Let's pretend this is the battery. The positive of the battery is always touching the wire, and it's a direct path through the circuit into the LED. One continuous path without being soldered to the board. So I personally think that's a big huge improvement. Okay. On top of that, on all of the future DriverVN, we are going to be using 2-ounce copper instead of 1-ounce copper. So basically, all the previous circuit before will have 1-ounce copper trace. This will have 2-ounce. So what that basically means, if the traces are the copper lines on these boards here that you can see where the current flows through, and those traces are going to be double in thickness, carrying I guess double the amount of, I'm not sure if it's double, but roughly speaking, double the amount of current handling. So that is another improvement. Okay, thicker trace, direct positive pass through, and we now have thermal sensor, temperature sensors directly mounted onto the circuit. So you can actually set the temperature. The circuit will will read temperature, reports it to the MCU, and then it will basically throttle down the light from 50%, from any modes that are greater than 50%. It will throttle it back down to 50% as the light gets too hot to a specific level that you can set. And you can set the levels from 40, Dr. Jones, again, lives in Germany, uses the metric system, so he uses Celsius as the measurement system. I can do a conversion to Fahrenheit, but for the purpose of this video, I'm gonna speak in Celsius. Okay, so the default level that you receive your light is going to be, the circuit can get to a maximum heat level of 60 degrees Celsius. Okay, but you can set this circuit to withstand a heat before throttling down from 40 degrees to 90 degrees Celsius, and in increments of 5 degrees. Okay, all right, and as before, it'll also have a if you choose not to use if you do not trust the thermal sensor alone, there's also a a turbo timer, so you can set when you want the maximum level to be throttling down. Okay, so after the thermal timer is up, it'll throttle down to say 50%, and the default level would be 20 minutes. Okay, but you can set that to be any length of time you want. For example, you put in the light, and then you can set it, you let the light run, and then you wait for it, and the light turns too hot to hold within 5 minutes, and you're like, okay, 5 minutes is good, turn it off, and it'll set to 5 minutes. Okay, I'll show you guys how to set all this in a separate video, but for this video, I'm just going to be discussing the features. Okay, so then you have a light, you have dual layer of protection, extra safe. You have thermal sensor that reaches a certain temperature, so whichever comes first will throttle down the brightness. If the light reaches, say, 40 degrees Celsius first, it'll throttle down to 50%, or if it reaches 5 minutes first, it'll throttle down. You have 2 tiers of safety. So that is a big step up from DriverVN2. Okay, now you also have programming lock. So before, right, you would set the light to a certain program, and then you can accidentally press a number of taps and you be into a different program. However, now the light will have programming lock, where a sequence of press will lock the modes into that mode. And unless you press the light the same exact way, you cannot alter the user interface in any form or shape. All right, so let's talk about some of the mode groups here. Okay, the light now is programmed with you do 10 quick taps for programming to get into programming. Once you're in programming, there are 12 different decks. Okay, and each deck does something else. I guess I'm gonna have to show you guys how to talk a little bit about the program, and then go through into the details in a separate video. So basically, 10 quick taps will bring the light into programming mode. The light will flash indicating that you're in programming mode. Whenever you want to set the light, you will have to every time do 10 quick taps for that programming mode. Once you're in programming mode, there are 12 decks to choose from. So you can press 2 for deck 2, press 3 for deck 3, or press 5 for deck 5. Once you're in the deck, okay, there will be a number of mode groups that you can set. All right. So for example, if I want to go into programming mode, deck 3, and then mode group 4, I will be doing 10 click, okay, and then 4 click for deck 4, and then for the second group, I'll be doing 2 clicks for group 2. Sounds complicated? It's not. All right. I'll show you in the next video. But let's break it down. Why do we have so many decks? We have so many decks because there are over 50 mode groups that you can select from. I don't remember exactly, but I think DriverVN2 has around 22 mode groups. This one has double. 50 different mode groups you can set this light to. 50 different combinations you can set the light to do a ton of different things, okay? And there is a bunch of different modes that we do not have in the previous DriverVN2. Okay, so let's go through all the decks and see what all the decks entails. Deck 1 has 1 to 2 levels, okay? Deck 2 is reserved for lending the light to somebody. So there is several different mode group in deck 2, but if you set the light to one of the mode group in deck 2, the light max brightness will only be 30% of the current draw. So that is not very bright, but bright enough to navigate around. And the light will have automatic program lock. So you can set the light to any mode in group 2 in deck 2. You have program lock. The user that borrows the light cannot change the user interface unless they know that secret press, and it's very, very difficult to go into accidentally disable that programming lock because it's a specific press that you have to do. So that mode is an excellent mode that you can set to, and it has 1 to 4 different levels that you can set to. Lend somebody a light, have peace of mind that they will have the light, they cannot change the programming, and the maximum brightness is limited to 30%. The light will be fairly bright and will not overheat. And that is a very, very important features that I wish the older driver has, because I lend out lights all the time, and I've told you guys many times before, and as a matter of fact, it's in the purchase agreement that someone that is uninformed cannot use my lights. You have to really know what you're doing. You have to agree to the user agreement right before you purchase a light, before using the light, because all my lights are very heavily powered. They get really hot, but now you can set it to one of those modes in deck 2, and then you can land out your light, and you know, peace of mind, 30%, never get too hot. They can't change the user interface. You have that peace of mind. Very, very safe. I highly encourage you to use a mode in deck 2 when you're landing on a light, unless that person is extremely informed. Deck 3 has 3 levels, but combinations of groups that have 3 levels, okay? Deck 4 have 4 levels. Deck 5 have 5 levels, deck 6 have 6 levels, and again, 6 level total per mode group, but you can have, like, say, level high, medium, low, moonlight, turbo, or you can have turbo first, and then you can have groups with memory or without memory, and then there's another special feature, okay, where you can have, say, low, medium, high, and if you double tap, you get turbo. So every time you turn on the light, it will turn on at the first mode, which is low, for example, okay? You always have low, but if you double tap, you go into that hidden mode, and that hidden mode could be strobe, or that hidden mode could be turbo. So very inconvenient. Grab the light, double tap, you have turbo, okay? Or grab the light, double tap, you have strobe. Or grab the light to single tap, you have low. Okay, anywhere in the sequence, if you double tap, you get that hidden mode. That is a feature that is not available in the previous DriverVN2. All right. Deck 7 has a bunch of mode groups for tactical users. Obviously, tactical users love instant access to strobe. So there you will have double tap for instant strobe, and then combinations of low, medium, high, or high, medium, low, 3 levels, 2 levels, all sorts of things, okay? But, so all of the mode groups in 7 are targeted for tactical users, and I have researched a lot on tactical user interface, and I have looked around, and so have Dr. Jones and Richard. So we have came up with what I think are the representative of what a tactical user would need in a light, and we came up with those groups, okay, and what are the tactical levels, okay. All right, so deck 8 would be discos and bicycles. The term discos refers to strobe and blinky lights, okay? You have a variety of different strobes, a variety of bicycle light strobes. The bicycle strobe is actually very, very cool. You can actually use it to drive, to ride your bike, and it's not just a strobe. Basically, the light will be constantly on all the time, and then it will double blink every second or so, or double blink every 2 seconds, and you can have that in low or you can have that in high. I will demonstrate what that looked like in the next video, but now you know that there are several different modes just for bicycle riders, and that is another feature that DriverVN2 does not have. Okay, and then deck 9 is blank. There's nothing in deck 9. I'm not sure if I'm missing out anything, but there's nothing in deck 9. So deck 9 is just the separations from all the different levels into advanced setting modes. Okay, deck 10 is where you go into to set temperature sensor. Okay, deck 11 is where you go into to program to toggle programming lock. You can you can have programming locked or disabled, basically toggling it in deck 11. And deck 12 is where you would set turbo timer. Okay, and like I said, default 20 minutes. You can set that to whatever you want. If you're you can set that to like 5 minutes or 2 minutes if you want. If you're if for example, if you have a single LED doesn't draw very heavy current, you can set it to like, you know, say 25 minutes or 10 minutes. But if you have a quad like the one in this light, it'll get hot within 5 minutes. So you would want to set it down to like 5 minutes, and then you have that work in conjunction with thermal sensors, double tier safety, as I've mentioned before. Okay, you can turn off the turbo timer if you want. Turning off the turbo timer is by setting the turbo timer to be less than 3 seconds. If you set the turbo timer to be less than 3 seconds, it automatically disables it. Okay, so technically you can only have a turbo timer of 4 seconds, which is kind of odd. All right, but it's there. You can do that if you want. All right, so that is a little introductions of all the new features of DriverVN3. All right, that probably didn't give you too much. The next video, though, I'm going to be focusing on how to program the light, and so you can see how complicated or how simple it is. At first, I thought it was a little complicated. It is, but not really. After like 3 minutes or so, I picked it up really, really fast, okay? And I've learned how to program the light into all the different modes I want very, very fast. This driver is so powerful. It's going to be able to do so much things that I think once you get on this driver and you get the hang of it, it's going to be your go-to driver. I feel that confident about this circuit, okay? It might need a little tweak here and there, maybe make the visually the levels more linear, but other than that, I think this DriverVN3 that I have in my hand here is a prototype that is very close to production. And physically is improved, and firmware is well improved. There is one more key features that I have been nagged over and over again. Everybody who wants moonlight. And I do not have moonlight in my DriverVN2. Moonlight is now an option, okay? Not an option. Moonlight is now part of the future for DriverVN3, okay? So it's very low. I haven't actually tested it thoroughly in my integrating sphere. I don't even know if my integrating sphere can pick it up. It might, but it is really dang low, okay? Really dang low, and you guys are going to like it. It's the kind of mode that you can turn on and look at the LED at night and navigate and not blow out your vision. So finally, it will have moonlight. Okay, you guys obviously tell I'm extremely excited, okay? Stay tuned for part 2, where I'm going to show you guys how to program DriverVN3. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you to you guys for helping me and my team create this user interface. And special thanks to Dr. Jones and Richard for making this circuit happen. Okay? DriverVN3.